And I'm really stoked that I can be here today in person, because for the last 4 years I've always given a presentation since 2011, but I've actually never been at the conference. And so I've always been sitting at home on my couch and giving presentations, or being in a hotel room and giving a presentation, or having a recording sent in because the internet connection was too slow. And so today it's really the first time that I'm able to meet all of the UK Mahara representatives, and also the Japanese ones, and also Sweden, of course, and some Germans as well. And so it's really nice to be here. So thank you very much for making it possible, and thank you to all of you for coming to Southampton today. And so what I want to do in today's presentation is touch upon a few different things. And one of them, of course, is what's in Mahara 15.10, which we just released a few weeks ago, but also kind of looking at some of the things that we would like to do over the next year or so, and also talk to you about a few of the new initiatives or initiatives that we've already started a little while ago about in the Mahara project down in New Zealand, and that might also kind of continue a bit more here in the UK and Europe and other continents. And so in order to get started, though, since I do know your names, but you may not know each other, let's just see who's actually in the room. But before then, here's the hashtag again, so if you want to tweet anything, please use that. Not Mahara Hui UK14, just Mahara UK15 makes it a bit shorter. You have a few more characters available to tweet. But now, do we have any students in the room? Do we have any faculty, teachers, and the like in the room? Stand up, please, so that we can see you all around. Okay, fantastic. And by the way, you can stand up multiple times, you know. I've got a few people to go through here, so let's see who's available. Do we have any support staff, learning technologists who give support, who make everything happen? Wow. That so far is the biggest crowd. Look at each other, look at who you are, so that you can then also during the breaks talk to each other, find each other, and see with whom you can connect if you haven't already met them. Now, do we have organizers of conferences or Mahara user group events here? Stand up again. Yes, we have some of the same people standing up, and that is what I'd also like you to see, that you oftentimes have more than one role in the Mahara community. You participate in a lot of different ways. Do we have any testers who look at the software, test it before it comes out? Lenka, perfect. Translators. I know that there's at least one translator here in the room who's hiding in the back. Dajan? Not anymore. Now we know Dajan is our French translator, lives in Switzerland and the UK. And yeah, I think that was it in terms of translators. Anybody who writes documentation, not just necessarily for the Mahara project in general, but for their universities, schools, and so on. And you see who are the really active people already in the community. Who has contributed to Mahara? Who's a Mahara ninja? Who has reported bugs? Who has fixed bugs? Who has written new features? Fantastic. Who does front-end development work? Who designs themes here in the room? Who makes things pretty? Yep, Gordon has done some skin work in the past. Paul and also Kevin do front-end development work. And now, who's a Mahara core contributor? Who has contribution rights and also has code in core Mahara? Yep, Ruslan, Chris, and Stacy. And we have a few others like Kevin and also Hitesh who have commits in Mahara themselves. And they are our ninjas, they are contributing. And hopefully we'll also get them to the point of where they contribute more and more so that they eventually might also become a core contributor. Who is fixing security bugs or reporting security issues? Yeah. Stand up.
I just realised that I put my hand up at the wrong time there.
For the wrong time? Doesn't matter. In the future, you will at some point. And so what you've seen so far is pretty much all the contributors that we have in the community. And we have virtually almost everybody present here in the room. So that is really, really fantastic. I left a few out because we have a number of automated processes that are also displayed here. But I only wanted to focus on the people that are actually in the room, because you can now find the ones that you really want to talk to if you have a translation question, or if you have a testing question, or if you want to talk to a developer. You now know where they are in the room and can talk to them over the next couple of days. Now, what I'd like to know from you now is actually, what is that logo? What does it mean in Te Reo Māori? Or does anybody know the English term of it? And if nobody puts their hand up, the Kiwis can answer. It's actually pretty easy. Just think of it, what it represents. Or maybe to form the question slightly differently, does anybody know what Mahara stands for in Te Reo Māori, what it means? Shout it out, and I'll see who says it first. Thought. Sam? Perfect, yes. It is thinking and thought. And the logo itself is a rauri, and that means as Sam did it. And that's a single twist. So interspersed in my keynote, I have a few trivia questions around Mahara, so you can actually also win prizes. So listen carefully. Don't leave the room, you might be missing out. So before we go into what is actually what we currently have, so look at the present and then look at the future, I'd like to take a step back and actually look at the past, where Mahara has been coming from, what has been going on over the last few years. So who was actually the first contributor? Who had the first code in Mahara? Penny Leet. Who said that? Kevin. Perfect. And now, next question, right on the heels of it. How old is the Mahara project?
2006.
Yes, Ziggy. Perfect. Yeah. And so the first commit was Penny Leet when she worked at Catalyst before she moved to Europe. Ziggy in the row. And Mahara 1 was then released in April 2008. So that from mid-2006, so Penny's commit was in Mahara towards the end of September 2006. Until 2008, everything was very much in lots of development work. So up to the first release, there was lots of heavy lifting that the development team had to do. And so that was first released then. And Mahara 1.1 came in February 2009, and that's when copying of pages were introduced, and also group improvements, as well as importing content from Moodle already back then. So that has been in Mahara for quite a long time already. And shortly thereafter, there was actually already the first Mahara UK conference. So really early on. I think Mahara Hui UK is the longest standing conference of Mahara so far. So that's a lot of achievement and a lot of thanks to everybody who has ever organized that conference and made it possible for users to get together. And then in November 2009, Mahara 1.2 was introduced. And that started with exporting portfolios into both HTML and Leap2A. I think a lot of you still remember Nigel's video that he put up where he introduced the feature. We got additional themes. They were all developed and implemented by Paul Walker, sitting over there in the middle, and also making it possible to submit portfolios to Moodle. Then Mahara UK 2010 came in July, and that was the second conference and held at Westminster Kingsway College. Then Mahara 1.3 was released in September 2010, and that was the release where I was already partly involved because I had moved to Catalyst in New Zealand in June 2010, and so that was the first time that I really saw what the developers do each release and how Mahara comes together. And that's when collections and plans were introduced. Collections thanks to Birmingham City University, and also when a simpler main navigation was created to make it easier for people to find their way around. Mahara 1.4 came around in June 2011 when we had the Google Apps and image gallery blocks introduced, in easier page sharing and also commenting on artifacts. And then in the same year, there was also Mahara Hui UK in June, in which Mark Osborne from New Zealand gave the keynote and also talked about my portfolio, which is the big Mahara site where there are over 1,600 schools on it in New Zealand. And that was the one that was held at Southampton University. In 2000, that should have been 2009 actually already. That was just when it was tweeted out again. In 2009, Southampton University created a video on e-portfolios. And I think that was also one where Sam was heavily involved and Roger. And that just tells students how they can use e-portfolios. And then they also made available a version that was unbranded so that the entire community could actually use it. Mahara 1.5 in April 2012 allows users to copy collections. Before then, you could already copy pages, but not collections. We also introduced a primary school theme so that it made it nicer, bigger font, more icons, more color in there for younger students, because in New Zealand especially, primary schools started to use Mahara, and therefore they wanted something different that didn't look so academic and formal. And that's where the primary school theme came about. And we also started having authentication to Persona, back then called Browser ID, which is the authentication mechanism initially developed by the Mozilla Foundation, which is also still used for the Open Badge Backpack. Then in the same year, we switched to a 6-monthly release cycle. So that's when the releases become really regular in April and October of each year. Before then, it was usually between 9 and 12 months, so nobody ever really knew when things were coming out. And we had decided to move over to a 6-monthly release cycle so that you had more certainty in there when things were being released, and also had the chance to really upgrade always during the summer. So April for the Northern Hemisphere, and then October release for us down in the Southern Hemisphere. Now, how many contributors do you actually think have ever contributed to Mahara that are in the code base, that have a commit in the code base? Do you think it's 148, 152, or even 157? So choices again, 148, 152, or 157. Do you have choose one of those?
157.
157? Nope. Sorry, Paul, we gotta get some more in there. So now there are only 2 choices left, so 50-50 chance to win something.
148.
147? 148. Yep, Gordon, that's correct. So that gets you a USB stick with a Mahara installed. So you can install VirtualBox on your computer and then have a Mahara ready set up to play with. It's already on the master version, so 1604, so that you don't have to set up a server yourself. And now that we are already moving on, Mahara Hui UK 12, I think at least for me, that was the most memorable one, because then that's when I had an earthquake happening right in the middle of my presentation. But besides that, a lot of other good things actually happened. Fortunately, it didn't rattle too much, and I could continue with it. Mahara 1.6. was then released, our first 6-monthly release in October 2012, when we really had a lot of new functionality in there. So for example, we went over to a responsive theme, we implemented statistics, had allowed iframe sources in the administrator interface so that you could easily allow more media to be embedded without having to put that in the code, which was available already since 1.5. But of course, with 1.6, then made it much easier. And also the clean URLs were introduced. Then Mahara 1.7. That's when masquerading sessions suddenly became transparent, so that students would actually know when somebody went into their portfolio if you set up this feature, and also when we had licenses introduced, so you could actually choose which license each artifact has, and then also when we had the retractable blocks, so that you could only see the heading but not much else. Then there was Mahara UK14, where Gordon said, "Make new friends, caught up with old ones, and put faces to tweets. And oh, got some new ideas." So I think this could be the motto for pretty much every Mahara UK conference, because you always meet new people, learn something new, share your things, and then go home and hopefully have the time to implement some of it. Mahara 1.8, again, was a very big release, where we, for example, put in the self-import of Leet to A files, so that not only administrators could create portfolios, but that you also had the chance to merge portfolios, where we implemented full text search, flexible page layouts from the University of the Arts London, a completely new icon set, page editing changes so that the block selector is now on the left and not horizontal anymore, and also Gregor skins, which are very popular. In Mahara 1.9, we focused heavily on accessibility, so that we can also cater to people who use a screen reader or who can't use the mouse and are can just navigate around with a keyboard. And that was a very big push, because we did want to ensure that everybody can also use Mahara, and especially with a lot of universities and schools and government agencies requiring certain accessibility levels, it was very imperative for us to also meet those, and of course then also continue improving those and making it better. Then Mahara UK14 last year in Brighton, where there was a good artist who pulled together all the ideas that were had here at the conference. Then Mahara 1.10, again with a number of new features, where it was possible to archive submissions, export, put everything in an export queue. So instead of downloading a file immediately, it was created when the server had resources available, which is especially useful for large portfolios that take up a lot of processing power, so that sites don't get bogged down and get into timeout, or if 10 or 15 people start clicking the export button and everybody wants to export a gigabyte portfolio, then it kind of gets a bit slower, and therefore put it into an export queue. Students get an email once it's done and can then download the file. We also implemented notifications to multiple people, so you can now send notifications to more than one person and not always have to create a group. And we also simplified the dashboard interface and also now only have 3 buttons on it, namely create, share, and engage. Mahara 15.4 is not a huge jump in numbering, but it just represents that we switched our numbering system from a pretty random, typical one, because we've never really used semantic versioning, to a database system. And from this year on, you'll know when the version of Mahara that you're using has been released, because the first number stands for the year and the second number stands for the month. So we always have 15.04, so for 2015, April, and now we've released 15.10, which is October 2015. And hopefully that'll make it easier for people to know how old their Mahara is and when they should be upgrading to something new. In this release, we put a copy button on a page, making it easier to copy pages and collections, and also had the biggest addition pretty much to that date, which was the web services, for which we'll be hearing more from Stacey later on today. Now, talking about something technical, who do you think actually installed Mahara from an iPhone? I give you again 3 choices. Was it Richard Mansfield? Was it Nigel McNee? Or was it Roger Emery? That was already back in Mahara 1.4.
Then it was Nigel.
Nope.
Roger.
Roger, yes, that's correct. Somewhere over there. So Roger was brave enough, because his computer didn't want to upgrade the server to Mahara 1.4, that he actually did everything on an iPhone. And I just thought that was really amazing, because he couldn't find a tweet, but I think so. It must have probably been an email, but he told me about it, was really all excited that he got it to work on his iPhone on the way home even. And yeah, so that he, I think, is one of our highly technical people in putting Mahara on the server.
Another bodge, that's all it was.
And then Mahara 15.10, for which we'll be hearing a little bit more in a few minutes. And that does not really have a lot of new features in there. So we have new themes, but the biggest feature was actually introducing Bootstrap. And just to give you an kind of impression of what that means for the code base when a huge feature is added to Mahara, what you're seeing here is kind of the activity in the code repository at the time when Bootstrap was added. So this is when suddenly all the Bootstrap code, new CSS and everything different comes in. There's just a burst of activity, and all that was just within one day. So if you look at the activity throughout the weeks before, there was sometimes a change here, change there, people moving around, adding things to the code base. But for Bootstrap, because the work was done in parallel, everything just got in there. And so there are just hundreds and thousands of lines of code added, and also quite a lot removed, because we did want to ensure that everything works. And of course, now that we have Bootstrap, we have new themes available. And that pretty much catches us up to the present, namely that we are now at Mahara Hui UK. One last question for the moment is, how many different translations do you think do we actually have in Mahara? Is it 41, 45, or 47? Nope, sorry.
45.
45, correct. I give the Welsh the benefit of the doubt. They haven't actually translated anything yet, but we do still count them to hopefully make them put something in there. But they are altogether 45 listed on the translation interface in Launchpad. And a few of them are doubled up, so there are a couple of German ones, then there are a couple of Chinese ones. But it's really, really good to see that a lot of translations are very, very active. Sometimes if you look at the translation interface and you think, well, should I use that language or not and install it for my students? Just check it out, even though it might not be fully translated, because some translators only translate the user interface and not the administrator interface. So even if something isn't 100% translated, you might actually find all the language strings that you need on the user interface, because mostly administrators work with the English version anyway. Okay, so that brings me really to Mahara 15.10. And that is kind of giving Mahara new life, because we've had Paul's themes for a number of years, and they've done really, really well. And over the last couple of years, people have been able to also add skins on top of them. But now we thought it's time that we actually refreshed our themes, made new ones available, and that was just because of Bootstrap. Otherwise, we would have done it already earlier. But we thought, let's wait for Bootstrap, because that way we have all themes in a responsive mode. And currently, the new themes that are available in Mahara 15.10 are the default theme, the primary school theme, the ocean theme, and the modern theme on the right-hand side. There will be a couple more themes added for Mahara 16.4, but these 4 themes can already be used, and even the raw theme, which is our theme on which things can be based, is also pretty nice looking, so that you might also just want to use that and pop your logo on, change some colors around, and see if you can use that with your institution. And now all themes are actually responsive, not just the default theme. And also when you put a skin onto a theme, it stays responsive and allows you to still have a nice display. We also did a lot of usability improvements in this version again, and partly because our front-end designers implemented things slightly differently, because Bootstrap already allowed for it. And therefore, here just a very brief glimpse of some of those improvements. And this is in the group section, where you now actually have a bar always telling you in which part of the group you are, making it easier for you to find your way around. Then we also have the title of the group section where you're in always displayed. And that way you can also find your way around, and the group title is also displayed again. And we also have an edit this page button for the group homepage, because in the past you could always only change the settings in the group directly from there, and in order to change the group homepage you needed to go into pages, click on the edit button, and so on. So it was a bit cumbersome, and so the edit this page button, like the dashboard, you can immediately edit everything from where you are. Thanks to the Fernuniversität in Hagen in Germany, we now also have group, institution, and site journals available for use, making it easy to copy journals from an individual user into a group, or also put journals now onto a template and then copy that over to the students. Because in the past you could never use institution or site pages, create them and then embed a journal that the students should get, but that is now possible. And therefore it opens up possibilities for you to work with institution and site pages to create them as templates, or even have a blog for your institution or your entire Mahara instance available to everybody, instead of having to use a particular user account for that. You can also view now portfolios and not pages, and that is thanks to Pratt Institute in New York. So in the past, you always only saw the pages displayed in your My Pages blog, on the dashboard, and in the latest changes blog, and also on the Shared With Me blog, which of course makes the list of results much, much longer. And so especially if you work with templates and every student needs to copy them over, then you always saw lots and lots of pages of one student and never actually got to the others. And therefore, this makes it really nice, condenses things because you have access to the portfolio that you're interested in, and see results more quickly. And also the page on your profile page is a bit more condensed, as well as your dashboard. And so if there's a collection, you'll see it because it has the number of pages listed, so you know how big the portfolio is. We also have a much better collection navigation now. In the past, we've always had those tabs, and the titles of the pages were hidden behind the tabs, but that has all changed. And now you have the collection title displayed prominently. You can navigate within the collection with next and previous buttons, or you can use the drop-down menu, because you'll always know on which page within the collection you are. So if you have a large collection, you don't have this expanding tab navigation anymore, and the 3 dots and pages being abbreviated, but you have the entire page title displayed. So essentially your page starts down here, and above that you have the collection navigation available. And thanks to Switch, which is a provider in Switzerland who makes Mahara available for all Swiss universities on one instance, we now have threaded comments. Because in the past, you could always only kind of add a comment to a page or to an artifact, but you could never really reference a previous comment. But now, similarly to what we already have in the forums, when you have a comment and you want to reply to that directly and show that you're replying to it without having to say, I'm replying to Petra now and what she said last week, you just click the reply button, and then your answer will be indented slightly so that you can also see the connection between the two. Sounds relatively easy, but actually wasn't, because like with a lot of things in Mahara, we have to take access permissions into consideration. Namely, if you reply to a private comment, then of course your comment also needs to stay private. Whereas if you reply to a public comment, it needs to be public. And then also a notification sent, because we can now send notifications not just to the author of the page, but also to anybody who has commented on the page. And so there were quite a few intricacies in there, but we've got it in for Mahara 15.10, and you can try it out. You would need to activate threaded comments, though, for an institution. It's not universally activated at the moment, but you can decide on it. And we now also have a page template available. Normally, when you create a Mahara page, comes in the default 3-column layout, no rows, and that's it. But if you're tired of that layout and you were one of those people who asked us in the forums of how you can actually change that, change it, say, to a 2-column layout, maybe a couple of rows in there, now's your time, because thanks to iCampus 21, Jack Meyer in Canada, we could implement a page template. And that essentially changes your default Mahara page that everybody sets up. So when you click a Create Page button, it will be created in the layout that you will have chosen on the screen. So be careful not to put too much on that page, because everybody will then get it. So usually it might really only be used for changing the page layout. But I know for Dirk that they are going to put a block onto each page so that the teachers with whom they are using their Mahara instance instantly have that particular block there. It's really nice because you can easily change that. It doesn't affect existing pages. It only affects new pages, but it's very easy to change. And now we are getting to a few more administrative things, as you might have noticed. Thanks to the New Zealand Ministry of Education, we expanded a bit our statistics, because we do need to do reporting for them on how many users use My Portfolio every month and so on. And it's actually pretty difficult to get that number if you don't look exactly the day after the end of the month, because we in the past have not kept the statistics or the login information from students when they have logged in properly, meaning that when they logged in October, it counted for October, but when they logged in November, it counted towards November already. And so we actually lost information of how many people were logged in October if they already logged in November. And so we've changed that so that we now actually track whenever somebody logs in, a record is being put into the database so that we have that accurate information. But only from the date on when you install either Mahara 15.10 or backport that functionality onto your instance. So just be a bit careful about that. But what is really nice about it, you can't just only report over the last month, but you can also put in your own parameters so that you eventually can report immediately over a year or over 2 years. And you can download those statistics as well. Another feature we implemented for the Ministry of Education New Zealand is that you can now change the email address directly in the admin area. So all of those connected to Moodle or LDAP or single sign-on, that's not really a feature for you, but we do have a lot of people who don't have any external authentication method connected. And so if you're managing especially a large Mahara instance, you oftentimes come across the thing that students or teachers change their email address and they don't change it in their profile, but they want you to change it. And so that wasn't really that easy to do actually in Mahara, even though you could upload a CSV file. It didn't put the email address in as your primary email address. It only added it as a secondary one. So while the email address was in, you still had to log in as that user and switch the radio button and make the address that you changed and added to the primary one. Now you don't have to do that anymore. You just go into the user account settings, put in the new email address as primary email address, and the previous ones that are already in the profile are being kept just as secondary ones so that the students can still switch or they can then delete it themselves. And as you can see here now already, this is all the new Bootstrap layout. So we simplified some things also got spaced out so that there's more white space there, and some of the things got moved around a bit. And of course, one of the biggest, or the biggest thing actually in this release is new themes. And so I think some of you might be dying to know how you can actually create your new theme, because it's gotten easier. At the same time, it's gotten slightly trickier. Like with everything in life, I would say. So if you want to make your own theme, you can just use regular CSS. Because when you download Mahara, it comes with the compiled CSS. We decided to go with Bootstrap and use a compiler instead of like what Moodle does, kind of bring everything compiled already, so that you can be more flexible and that the styles eventually can be used easier instead of just having everything compiled there. But if you download Mahara via the zip file, you have all themes already pre-compiled and you could simply change them. The more flexible option though is really to use Sass and Gulp. So these are the two tools that you would use in order to create a theme. Sass is just a better CSS language, and Gulp is a tool that then compiles it. We do have the instructions of how to do that in the code. So if you are a front-end developer and you've already worked with Bootstrap, that's probably nothing really new and difficult for you. For anybody who got the USB stick, I did install Gulp on there as well, so that you can simply already follow the instructions and play around with the themes and make changes, and then simply update it and see what it looks like. And with the compiler, we just have the possibility now to use a lot of Bootstrap functionality, and not just with the compiler, but really bring in everything pre-compiled so that you can see the variables yourself and you know where you can make changes, and then everything's just being put into CSS. And so if you want to make quick color changes, once you are set up on your installation with Gulp, then you can make those very quickly and create your theme in a few minutes. Because we do have a variable file, so if you're not after anything fancy and just want to change the base colors, you can do that pretty quickly. You only need to touch one file, namely this variable file, put in your variables for the primary color, then link color, text color, and then also the mid-tone and light tone colors. Those are usually the ones where we have secondary information. Compile it, and you're done. That's the nice thing I find about Sass and our way of compiling things, that we have the variables in there for people to make changes much more quickly. And of course, there's more to come than in 1604. Because now that we have Bootstrap, we can look into making more extensive usability changes and also changes within Mahara, because we have the framework available and can now look into, okay, what else do we want to do? Because it was such a major change for us that took several months to implement, we did not want to go into feature creep and kind of dream up all those nice ideas or look at those nice ideas, but actually not really achieve our release this October. Because we are in a 6-monthly release cycle, so we kind of do need to ship something. And we didn't really want to ship anything that was broken, or where you couldn't really create a theme or see a theme, or where there were two mechanisms in there. So we really shipped the minimum that we could do and that we could achieve within the time frame. And now for the future, we can go a bit crazier and see what is possible. And also, if you already know Bootstrap and have ideas of what to change, please let us know. Get in touch with us so that we can see if we can also directly implement it in core Mahara. Here are some of the ideas that we'd like to implement for Mahara 1604 if we get the time, and in some cases, of course, also the funding. And so one is which our UX team has already worked on quite extensively. So we are looking into the technical implications and possibilities there is having one page in multiple collections. Because while the collection feature has served us well over the years, I think all of you have seen its limitations, namely that you can only have one page in one collection when you kind of want to have it or reuse it in a different collection as well. So we are looking into how we can make that change possible by pretty much changing everything around. And that also means then combining the pages and collection screens. Right now you go to portfolio pages or portfolio collections, but you don't really see them together and you don't really know how they work together, which one is in which, and see everything in one go. So that is also one of the things we'd very much like to do for 1604, so that we simplify the interface again, make it more usable, make it user-friendly. People don't really have to think so much about what is a page, what is a collection, but kind of have them in one. Also revamping the navigation. We're kind of running out at the top horizontally with our second level navigation, especially in certain languages. And so we are looking into how we can actually make changes there. Where do we put it best? What do other websites these days do to make a large navigation easily available? And that is, funny enough, not really on a mobile device, because there we already use the hamburger menu so that you have everything condensed, but it's really on a regular desktop computer. Also implementing a mobile-friendly media player, because Flash is going out of style and now everything is HTML5 based. So we kind of need to go that way. So we are currently actively looking into which player is the best out there that we can use. If you have any ideas, please let us know. And also exporting CSS for HTML exports. You all know pretty much, I guess, how ugly the HTML pages look or portfolios look when somebody exports it. And therefore, we look into how we can export the CSS so that the theme in which the portfolio was created goes along with the portfolio, so that it actually also looks nice when you look at it in a web page. Then also having a style guide available for all those of you who are interested in creating their own themes. Because Bootstrap is such a big framework, it does take a while to find where all the variables are, where the buttons are that you need, and so on. And so we are going to provide a style guide where all that information is more clearly displayed. And also, if you are thinking of developing your own functionality for Mahara, you'll have a central space where you can go and say, I want to have an edit button or a save button. What do these look like? So instead of having to find it in the code base, you go to the style guide, copy the code, put it into your plugin, and you're done. Or what does a paginator look like? Or what does it look like when I want to display pages or portfolios? Which sort of code do I need? So this will be very helpful for plugin developers, but also designers creating new themes in order to find their way around more easily and also keep things consistent, because that was also a major thing that we did for implementing Bootstrap, that we kind of got rid of a number of the inconsistencies that had gotten into the code simply because there were so many years, so many developers involved. Somebody did something slightly different but didn't know that there were actually 5 other places where he should have done the same thing. And also have open badge support. So we are thinking about putting the open badge displayer plugin from Descendum into the Mahara core code base. We haven't really decided on the open badge factory one yet, but we want to go with a displayer one for the time being, which would then allow you to connect to the Mozilla Backpack and also to the open badge password. So if you want to know more about open badges, Dajan is going to have a presentation later. And we are also making progress on smart evidence and are going to look at the technical implications and a number of the technical aspects that we really need to nut out in order to put something in there and make it available. And if you don't know yet what smart evidence is, I'll be talking about it tomorrow. And also make it quicker to edit pages. Kind of, you always click an edit button and then you click a configuration button for the actual blog. And so we are looking together with our UX team of how we can kind of maybe even get rid of one of those clicks. So make it easier, make it more intuitive for people to edit things. Again, to speed things up, to make it less onerous for newcomers to use Mahara and make it a bit more streamlined. So these are kind of very big plans. If you want to be involved in any of those or others, please let us know. Because Mahara is an open source project, anybody can contribute to it. Even a tiny bug fix is very useful and helps not just you or your institution, but many others. So please do consider contributing and talking to us. One other thing is, of course, how does Mahara work on mobile? We have Mahara Droid, and kind of also looking for a new name, I think, because a student at Victoria University revamped Mahara Droid to be designed via Cordova, which used to be PhoneGap, so that it can work across multiple platforms. It's therefore not just for Android, but also for the iPhone and for Windows phones and other things. And so we have the proof of concept available and want to roll it out as soon as possible. I'm not sure if we can get it done as a Christmas present for you, but hopefully latest by by next April that we'll have an updated version, because there's still a number of things to sort out there. But using Cordova will actually be really nice because it is JavaScript, so it will also be easier for people to create their own applications then and make changes, brand it the way of their institution. That was kind of catching you up to the present and also already to the future. But I'd also like to show you a few other things that we are working on, not just code-base-wise, but community-wise in general. A number of you might have already seen that we relaunched our Mahara Partner Program in September, and that basically means that we don't just make it available for commercial partners, so people who offer commercial services around Mahara, but also institutions that are already heavily involved in or actively involved in contributing to Mahara by organizing events, by fixing bugs, by creating new features, by being involved in usability studies, collecting feedback from users, feeding that back to the core team, writing documentation, translations, and so on. There are lots of possibilities. If you go to mahara.org/partners, you'll find the partner guide and can read through if the partner program was something that you'd be interested in joining. There aren't any fees involved because we value contributions more than fees and really want to get people actively involved. We know that we have a very large user base, but we also have a lot of silent users. So those that lurk in the forums, that use it heavily in their organizations, but where we at the project actually don't really know what's going on. And so especially with the supporters strand of the partner program, we do want to encourage universities, colleges, or other organizations to become more active in the community and talk about what they are doing, and therefore make it easier for others to get on board, to find out how you can use Mahara and so on. And so if you have any questions, or if you want to let us know how you want to contribute and be actively involved, please talk to me or go to the page and send an email to partners@mahara.org and I'll get back to you. And of course, some of those activities that we have in the community are our Mahara Hui events, but also Mahara user group meetings. And over the last few years, those user groups have been growing quite a bit. So we have the Mahara user group, the New York group, but it's kind of the Mahara user group because it also operates internationally and has webinars and usually one meeting in New York every year in person. Then we also have Mahara. Please raise your hand or stand up if you're a member of it. Gordon and Kevin and Jackie. That was formed at one of the Mahara UK conferences. Then we also have Maxi, which is the Mahara user group South England. And members of those, please stand up. Oops. So Domi, Sam and Roger. We also have the German Mahara user group, of which Siggy is a member.
Just for the numbers, we're going to be 100 in Kassel.
Yep, so I'll come to that in a second. Yeah, so German Mahara user group was formed a few years ago. Now we also have one in New Zealand, the Kiwi Mag group. This year in April, the Australian Mahara user group was formed. And if my Facebook translation works correctly, we now also have a Japanese Mahara user group. And we have a Japanese delegation also here at the Hui. So if you want to know more about what they are doing in Japan, then please talk to them. There is the Mahara Open Forum, which has been going on for a number of years already. But I think it was this year when the Japanese Mahara user group kind of more formalized itself. And Siggy already mentioned one of the events that is coming up. That is Mahara DE, the barcamp for Mahara in Germany. And currently they are at around 100 participants. So tight competition between the Mahara Hui events. And if you want to find one of those events, if you get excited by meeting other people, maybe not just in the UK, but also if you happen to be on holidays in a different country or want to kind of talk to another Mahara user, or if you kind of want to go onto a business trip or onto a trip for your university and onto fact-finding missions and explore what others are doing, events can be a really good place. But fortunately for our budgets, not all the events are just face-to-face. There are also lots of online events that you can join. And so if you go to mahara.org/events, you'll find them there in the events calendar. There's a Google Calendar there to which you can subscribe so that you get it into your regular calendar, see when things are going on. And if you want your event added to it, please send me an email and I'll add it, or send a tweet and I'll add it for you. And we also have our newsletter, to which a lot of you have already contributed in the past. And the newsletter is really a very good way to bring out your story, to let others know of what you're doing, and also to ask for help from others. Don't just look at it as reporting some big news, some big new revelations. You can also use it to ask questions when you're right at the start. Or if you want to do a research project on e-portfolios using Mahara, and you want to find different institutions that might want to collaborate. Or if you are having an event and you want to promote that, you can put it into the newsletter. It comes out 4 times a year, 1st of January or 2nd, 1st of April, it's no joke, 1st of July and 1st of October. And deadlines are usually about a week before then, but I can be flexible. And anybody can propose things. Also, if you want to highlight or showcase your own portfolio or a sample portfolio that you've created for your students or for your faculty if they use it for tenure and promotion, then please let us know. The more stories we get into the newsletter, the more we know what is going on in the community. And with we, I don't just mean us at the project, but also you. So that you also get ideas of how others are using Mahara, with whom you might want to talk about your implementation or get some ideas from. And that's why we have the newsletter. Because while the forums are there for the day-to-day discussion, sometimes it's probably not really easy for all of you to follow all forums, because there can be quite a bit of activity. And so emails, you kind of maybe put it off a bit. But the newsletter, that's why it comes out only 4 times a year, so that it's bundled goodness on Mahara. And you can read through the very short articles or then bookmark things and come back to them later. And that pretty much concludes my way through Mahara's past, present, and future, and how you can get involved if you aren't already very actively involved yourself and make Mahara better. It is a community project, and as people in open source like to say, it's not about the software, it's about the people. In particular, this was from Chris Cormack in the Koha community. It really is about people and connecting people, because we don't have to do create and work on a software if nobody's using it. So we do want to talk with people, and we do want to know what makes your life hard, what makes your life easy, how the software can change or should change over time in order to still meet your needs. And so it's very nice to see you all here for the conference, because that gives us all the opportunity to work together, maybe even work on a problem and nut it out and propose some changes. So Chris is going to have his workshop this afternoon, where you have a little bit of time to work in kind of lightning speed on something that we can then even take back to the developers and then see if we can implement it, or maybe you even have some ideas of how you can do that yourself and then contribute to it. And that was it from me. I think we have a couple of questions for short answers, or short questions, or then later on during the breaks for some longer conversations. Any questions or comments?
I'll just make a quick comment. It's very exciting, especially that you're focusing on the user interface. There's lots of the things you mentioned there. Some of those, just those mini pain points that you seem to be targeting, will make a big difference to all of us and our users. So that's very exciting to see.
Thank you. And as I said, if you have very particular pain points that you think we haven't addressed yet, please let us know, because what is also important for us, while we know a number of things that people don't like on Mahara, sometimes we don't necessarily know the specifics. So if somebody says, I hate collections, well, yes, what actually do you mean there? Is it the navigation? Is it the way you edit, that you created, or things like that? So very specific feedback can help. And that's, I think, where you are really good at, because you work closely with the many different users, so you can give us that feedback. So it might take a little bit of time until we really get to the point, but please don't be discouraged when we ask those questions, but they really help us to extract from you what it is that you want to have changed. Thank you.
Have we got any more questions? Can we show appreciation for Kristina?